The Giants lose 4 straight and their playoff hopes are dwindling. The rise and fall of Tyler Fitzgerald and what's next for your San Francisco Giants. It's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Alan Stiles. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area, but I live in Sacramento now, and I host a show at Sacktown Sports 1140 as well, called the Alan Stiles Show, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. Be sure to check that out. I also MC Sacramento Rivercats games. I was at one last night, by the way. I'm lucky enough to cover a team that I've been a fan of all my life. The Giants drop another one that's 4 straight as their playoff hopes are dwindling. Let's discuss the rise and fall of Tyler Fitzgerald and what's next for him, as well as what's next for the Giants as they close out their series in Arizona. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, I think that's all she wrote. For the second time in 4 games, the Giants jump out to 4 runs in the first inning. And before you had time to grab a beverage, before you had time to grab some food between innings, the lead had diminished. Then if you got up again and went back to your seat, the lead was gone. Tristan Beck gets the initial shutdown inning, but gives up 3 in the second. And at that point, it just felt like a move that we had seen too many times, or a movie that we had seen too many times. Ultimately, the game ended. There was an error by Casey Schmitt, which led to a walk-off, and that is just where we're at. The Mets win. Obviously, the Diamondbacks win because they beat the Giants, and the Giants lose another game. They are now 3 back on top of the tiebreaker with 11 games left. The Giants have one more against the Diamondbacks, so we will see what they are able to do in that day game with Verlander on the bump. We have more on that later in the show in the third segment. But with the Mets starting to find their way again, still staring at the Dodgers games in the face, maybe the Giants just did everyone a favor. And maybe this will give Buster Posey a more realistic time frame to look at everything as a whole. If the Giants had took this thing down to the wire, I think it's possible everybody would have maybe believed they were closer than where they actually are. That's not going to happen now, even though knowing the Giants, maybe they could win every game moving forward and miss the playoffs by 1 game and say, well, if they didn't do this or that, they'd still be in it. But I think this thing is probably cooked, and we talked about it yesterday, just as far as, okay, where can the Giants go from here? And if they do lose a game with the Mets winning a game, how would everybody react and how everybody would feel? I think it's pretty clear, at least how I feel. This thing it's over. It's over. And it was a fun run, but that's exactly what it was. It was a run. And you look at when they actually played the Brewers, that was at the end of August. So it's not like this thing was a full month long. It was, to put it nicely, or maybe not so nicely, it was a blip. It was a very nice blip. It was a nice couple weeks. We had a lot of fun. Drew Gilbert was outstanding. They were the talk of Major League Baseball. And this is what I continue to say on this show. What happens when the Giants start getting talked about? Seriously. What happens? And they had the Dodgers. They had that one, a couple hours where they were at least tied with the Mets for that last wild card. And after that, they all over themselves. That's what they did. They proved me wrong when I didn't know what would happen against the Brewers. They proved me wrong against the Cubs. They proved me wrong and a lot of people wrong over and over again. But as soon as it was actually time for the Giants to say, hey, we are going to do this thing, they weren't able to do it. Now, I'm not saying it's not because they didn't have the pieces. When you lose a Randy Rodriguez, when you trade a Tyler Rogers, when you lose these pieces, going back to Miller, who they lost a while ago, when you lose these pieces, I'm not saying it's not easy, but they teased everyone. There were, I'm not going to name who, but there are media members saying, well, it's a good thing Bob Melvin, this happened so we can stop that ridiculous conversation about Bob Melvin losing his job. Over 2.5, 3 weeks of baseball? Really? And they wrote that last week heading into the Dodger game, the Dodger series, and now look where the Giants are. Exactly where they were before. In a similar spot. So this thing is not over, but this is exactly what a lot of us were afraid of, right? And I would say this might even help. I'm not saying I want Bob Melvin to lose his job. I'm not saying that, but this might even help, because if they had taken this thing down to the wire, let me just put it out there right now before we move further down the rest of the season. I think that Bob Melvin is coming back. Not necessarily because of the option. Obviously, they gave him the option. I just think that Buster Posey is going to give him another opportunity. I think the dugout and I think the clubhouse, they really like him. And I believe that Buster is going to arm him with a better bullpen, with less holes in the field as far as some of their kind of developmental guys. We don't know what's going to happen with some of these guys are out of options, right? Some of the younger guys that they've tried to work along, the Luis Matos's, guys like that. So Buster is going to make some decisions, fill some of those holes for the pitching staff, also for the position players, and he's going to give Bob Melvin another go at this. That's how I feel. Now, whether I agree or not, I guess I'd have to see who else is available, but this is what I think is going to happen. So when I have that conversation, I'm not even talking about Bob Melvin losing his job at this point, because I just personally don't think it's going to happen. My opinion, would I move on from him? I would, because digging yourself out of a hole that you created for yourself, and I get it, they sold at the deadline, but why did they have to sell at the deadline? Because they were already playing poorly. And Bob Melvin, last time I checked, was the manager at that time. So I would, but I don't think the Giants are going to. So let me be very clear about that before, and everyone can obviously comment, give me your thoughts. I personally just don't see Buster doing it, because now that the Giants are effectively out of it, right? And we'll discuss how they could maybe pull off the craziest comeback ever. But assuming they're out of it, if they throw the white flag, now nothing really matters. So you've essentially stopped evaluating Bob Melvin, because you bring up certain guys. Jung-Hoo Lee is getting a day off almost every series. It feels like and I want to spend some time on that during the offseason. I get it. He played a lot, but is there something more going on? Oh, we overplayed. I just want to know, right? And I'm going to send some messages out. I'm just curious what they mean as far as, oh, we played him too much. And then they tried to work it all back or gain it all back by sitting him what feels like fairly often. So that's a separate piece. Obviously, there's a lot on my mind right now. But the main thing is, once this white flag gets thrown, whether it's today, if the Mets win again, whether it's sometime in LA, I think the evaluation for Bob Melvin stops, right? So they can lose every game to end the season. And once the Giants are kind of out of the picture, I don't know how Buster Posey is saying, well, they lost all those games. No, he's evaluating them based on when they were in the race. And I think because of that, Buster's going to say, well, if we didn't move off of the bullpen, well, if we didn't do this, if Randy doesn't get hurt, I think there are enough, for lack of a better term, and sometimes this word has a negative connotation, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Excuses. I think there are enough excuses for Bob Melvin to kind of hang around at least one more season. But this is what we all feared was going to happen with the Giants. As soon as they get rolling, as soon as people, oh, what are the Giants doing? Nope. That's just a fake run. It's just fool's gold. It's just fool's gold in San Francisco, the gold rush, fool's gold out at Oracle Park. That's what it was. It was cute. It was a cute little stretch to kind of tease fans, but the reality is they didn't have it. Some of that is based on the roster. Some of that is based on they're not built for it, or they weren't built for it this season. They weren't. Because we talked about the bullpen. Yeah, the bullpen was giving up big innings. That's what we discussed yesterday, and it does go hand in hand. But they just stopped hitting, right? The Giants, they have one big inning. They think they don't have to hit anymore. I don't know if it's going back to the and we'll talk about Tyler Fitzgerald and sports psychology, going back to that aspect. Oh, well, We just scored 4 runs in the first. It's not over. These teams out here, they're going to keep coming at you over and over and over again. So I was excited to start the week because they still had a chance at this. Now they've lost 4 straight, and it's bad. It's bad. In the most important spot of the season, you didn't show up. I don't care what you did to get here. That's a hole that you put yourself in. So they didn't show up. And now the season is basically over. And now we get to watch Bryce Eldridge. We'll talk about some other guys that I hope that they bring up. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. It was a good little blip in the season that we'll always remember. Or maybe we won't. Because the Giants always have a blip like this. Last season they did it. It was just later in the season. This is what they do. This is what they do. This is what they have done since 2015. I know it's been worse in certain seasons, but you had the 3 championships, and now they're stuck in this stretch where they're just good enough to hang around and to fill the seats and to eat your crab sandwiches and to enjoy yourself out there. Spend a lot of money, but enjoy yourself out there. But they're not good enough to hang with the big boys. And they had an opportunity to prove everyone wrong because the Diamondbacks did the same thing. The Diamondbacks, they sold at the deadline too. So it is a reason, don't get me wrong, but other teams did it and they hung around. So that's a bit different to me. On the other side, let's discuss the rise and fall of one Tyler Fitzgerald. What could he do and what can he do moving forward to be a part of the Giants big boy club? Don't move. More Locked On Giants coming up. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing PrizePicks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. It's quick, easy, and honestly, my favorite way to follow along with football. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. I've been reaching for my Doer jeans almost every day. I love my Doer jeans because they are made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks away moisture. Keeps you cool and comfortable as temperatures change. Great for any season. Doer combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It's the best of both worlds. There's a reason why they call them the world's most comfortable pants. But don't take our word for it. Go try on a pair for yourself. Doer just opened a store right here in Hayes Valley so you can feel the difference firsthand. Go check them out at 567 Hayes Street. Mention our promo code LOCKEDONSF in store to get 15% off your first order. Or check them out online at shopduer.com/LockedOnSF for 15% off. That's shopduer.com/LockedOnSF. The rise and fall of Tyler Fitzgerald. So the reason I came up with this segment, I know we've done a couple different player profiles, and I was at the River Cats game yesterday. I completely forgot that Tyler Fitzgerald existed. Seriously. Honestly, a couple weeks ago, I was watching the Giants game. There was a promo for one of their giveaways, and I looked at who the person was that was wearing the Hawaiian shirt, whatever. It took me about 5 to 10 minutes to realize that was Tyler Fitzgerald. And the juxtaposition on the thoughts about Tyler Fitzgerald to start the season, the end of 2024 to now, has been something like we've absolutely never seen. At the end of 2024, Tyler Fitzgerald looked like a breakout story in the making. He was red hot down the stretch, crushing home runs at a ridiculous pace and giving the Giants a glimpse of much needed middle infield power. Fans were buzzing about whether he'd lock down an everyday spot going into 2025. He hit 15 home runs in 96 games. It felt like there was a time where he was hitting home runs every other game. but the rise kind of gave way to the fall. Fitzgerald came into 2025 with exactly 1 year of major league service time. And instead of building on his late season surge, he battled inconsistency at the plate. He never quite found a groove. And by midseason, his role had diminished and he didn't really play the rest of the way. His OPS has dipped. His power has completely vanished. And defensively, he was fine, right? But if you're playing second base, you have to be able to hit. That's just part of it. And you got to play a really good second, right? And we're going to talk about how this kind of connects to Casey Schmitt as well. The last thing I'll say, just going into this season on Tyler Fitzgerald, is thank the heavens that Buster Posey and the crew didn't get too caught up on what he did, because he was playing shortstop. And there were people that thought maybe you don't need to go out and get someone. Now, Willy Adames has definitely been streaky, but he's found his groove here as of late. Knock on wood, will probably get those 30 home runs and end that streak. And there were people that thought we got Willy Adames at home with Tyler Fitzgerald, and the Giants absolutely did not. So this season in AAA, he's slashing 240, 308, and 683 with 6 home runs at Sutter Health Park, by the way. 6 home runs and 2 stolen bases. To be completely honest with you, the reason I found this fascinating, and I was going to bring up the sports psychology of it all, is because I almost feel as if Tyler Fitzgerald is a victim of his own success. It's not a perfect comparison, but think about a musical artist that had a crazy, crazy hit, and they didn't go into this wanting to be a one-hit wonder, but their hit was so big, every time they tried to make another song, it just wasn't as good. It just wasn't as good, and it made it tough for them to continue with their artistry and continue with their career. That's what it feels like with Tyler Fitzgerald. He played so well at the end of 2024 that the expectations were just unrealistic. And I know somebody can say that I'm making excuses, and maybe I am, but this is a guy who had the world at his fingertips. They said, hey, second base is yours. And it almost as if he tried to replicate what he did in 2024 every single at bat. And I was watching him yesterday. Like I said, I read off the numbers. It's bad. So we have 2 options here. Either what he did was a flash in the pan in 2024, or he just needs some type of something to refresh his thought process on where he's currently at, because I've never seen something like this to be that good. And I get it. And I'm the number one person that says it. You don't have a scouting report. You come out of nowhere. They don't know what you're good at. They don't know what you're not good at. And I understand minor league, obviously they have scouting reports, but he snuck up on some people. So maybe it was a flash in the pan, but you don't get to the major leagues without having a level of success. And I don't think you get to the major leagues hitting 240, 308, and 683 with 6 home runs and 2 stolen bases when you're supposed to be a speed guy. So he has regressed so much that it's honestly a bit sad. And I don't know what's going to happen with him for Fitzgerald personally. Missing that playing time that we discussed in 2025 has real consequences. A major league season is 186 days long, and a player needs 172 days of service to count for a full year. He started 2025 with 1 year of service, which put him on pace to hit the 2 years by season's end, but sitting out changed all of that. Technically, if he were recalled and brought back up with that 2-week window that the Giants have, he could still get the 2-year mark, but why would the Giants do that? Now they can extend that team control, and instead of reaching arbitration in 2027, they can push that timeline. So he kind of missed out on some things by way of not producing. So, the rise and fall, it's not done with them yet. I guess with that being said, the Giants still have that team control. So if something happens with Casey Schmitt or someone else, he played some right field towards the end of the season, they still have him, but it is pretty crazy how things changed and how quickly they changed for Tyler Fitzgerald. And I hope he figures things out. And the reality is Tyler Fitzgerald is probably something in the middle of what we saw in 2024 and what we're seeing in 2025. That's the reality of what he most likely will be. I don't know that he's an everyday guy. Doesn't seem like that's the case. And Casey Schmitt has kind of locked down second base. But again, what if Casey Schmitt pulls a Tyler Fitzgerald? That's the thing about some of these guys where you're waiting for something to click for a longer period of time. Elliot Ramos, yeah, I think he had 2 solid seasons. Obviously, the fielding is an issue, and some of the base running blunders is an issue, but he had 2 solid hitting seasons in Major League Baseball. I think that goes a long way. But with Tyler Fitzgerald, man, he was the bee's knees, to kind of age myself a little bit. He was the talk of the town. And I'm sitting there yesterday emceeing for the River Cats game, and in between innings, I'm checking the Giants score. I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? And I just watched Tyler Fitzgerald. I think he popped up, something like that. And I just thought, man, I have not thought about Tyler Fitzgerald in so long. What happened? Well, we'll see what will happen because he's not done yet. We'll see if next year is a year removed. If I were him, I would just honestly dang near try to flush 2025 and go back to the basics. And in a certain regard, flush the end of 2024 because you're chasing a ghost. You're chasing that one-hit wonder. You're chasing something you may not ever achieve again. It felt like you were hitting home runs every other game. So just get back to the basics and just wait for your time. Because, look, here's the thing. He's a utility guy. I know the Giants have a bunch of these guys. Between Tyler Fitzgerald, Christian Koss, Casey Schmitt, I don't think would ever play the outfield, but you never know. They have a bunch of these guys who are just waiting for someone to say, I'm the dude moving forward. You got Chapman, and I know it's kind of second base specific, but I'm that guy moving forward. But Tyler Fitzgerald, because of his speed, I think gives him a leg up on a Casey Schmitt as far as his versatility. But he's got to remember how to hit. He's got to remember how to hit again. And I'm hoping that he does because the more guys, even if it ends up being a trade piece in the future, but yeah, I couldn't believe. I thought, whoa, Tyler Fitzgerald. It's almost like a throwback, right? Oh, I remember that guy, but he's still right there in Sacramento. So Tyler Fitzgerald, I know I called it the rise and fall. We're hoping that the rise returns for you, Tyler, in 2026. One more segment with you. Let's discuss where the Giants should go from here. Is it time to call up some of those guys like Tyler Fitzgerald and others? I'll give you some names as we discuss what the Giants should do next to close out the season. Don't move. More Locked On Giants coming up. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. How I'm using Monarch Money: maximizing investments, increasing my savings rate, easily reviewing finances with my partner and my financial advisor, keeping a clear view of my financial health week to week and long term. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. There's nothing like catching baseball live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. Fees are included. Know your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So what is next for the San Francisco Giants? Well, the Giants are going to finish out their series with Justin Verlander taking on the Diamondbacks today. Some of you are probably listening or watching this show while the game is going on. It goes without saying this is a must-win. I think if you're Bob Melvin, Buster Posey, and that front office as a whole, you're giving the team one more game to drop. I know realistically it's already done. But if you get swept, you can make some clean decisions about guys that you'd like to see before the season is over. And I said yesterday that you could lose a series to Arizona if you manage to not drop another game in the standings to the Mets. But that's exactly what happened. The Mets won, the Giants lost. So you see what happens today. Maybe the Mets lose and you win, and you could tell yourself, hey, it's still alive. Maybe you both win. And in those situations, you probably don't throw the white flag until that first game in LA. It's just a game-by-game situation. If you lose today and the Mets win, then I'd say, all right, let's make sure we see some other names before the season is over. It was reported that Blade Tidwell was supposed to throw in a game soon. The River Cats only have 5 more games left in their season. So I'm not quite sure what that looks like. And I'm also not sure if it makes sense to see what he can do at the big league level with the game's not really meaning much. I don't think there's any need to rush him, and I don't think they're going to, but I'm just doing the math here, and I'll confirm with you if he's supposed to throw in a River Cats game specifically. And like I mentioned, I was at the River Cats game last night. Jesus Rodriguez can ball, man. That dude is a baller. If you haven't seen his at-bats, he kind of turns his front foot in like Denard Span. It looks extremely uncomfortable, but the dude rakes. And defensively, he had a pass ball that was a bit of a tough play, but on the other end, he threw out somebody, he hosed somebody trying to steal second base. So he's going to have some of these ups and downs. We know what Patrick Bailey is, a Gold Glove catcher, and Patrick Bailey has been playing really well and hitting really well specifically. But with these stretches, sometimes it's just that. Sometimes it's just a stretch. I think it would be a very, very good look to see what Jesus Rodriguez does in these last couple weeks here. There's no reason not to, right? Having a backup catcher does not mean the backup catcher respectfully has to stink, right? You can still say Patrick Bailey. You cannot be afraid of competition. You can still say, Patrick Bailey, you're our guy. You've been with us for a couple years now. But when Patrick Bailey gets a day off, it doesn't have to be somebody, and no disrespect to Andrew Kisner, but it doesn't have to be an Andrew Kisner. It can be somebody that can still kind of push Patrick Bailey in a way offensively. So I would bring up Jesus Rodriguez. That's the main name. Like I said, Tyler Fitzgerald for the control that the Giants would still have. I don't see them going in that direction, and pour some out for Brett Wisely, who was DFA'd with the move for Bryce Eldridge. Obviously, Bryce Eldridge, that's the other thing. A lot of people were upset last night that Bryce Eldridge didn't play against the lefty. I would agree. At some point, we have to stop. And I know the Giants said it, but I've been against this for years. And the Giants don't have much to show from it from a position player perspective. A lot of people thought that was a Farhan thing, by the way, when they would pull up guys and they would only face, if they were a lefty, they'd only face righties, things like that. I get, and I'm a little bit old school, I get that's where the league has kind of gone. But when you have a straight up stud, you don't do that. And I don't necessarily, I agree with the Drew Gilberts of the world with the platooning that they're doing in the outfield. Fine. You want to work him into it and make him prove a couple games worth that he can hit both. Luis Matos as well. Fine. But Bryce Eldridge, your goal is for him to hit lefties eventually. And he's been balling out against lefties. So why even put yourself in a situation where he hasn't seen lefties in whatever amount of time? Now he goes into 2026 and all of a sudden he has to see lefties. I don't understand that. Not for a guy like Bryce Eldridge. Some of these platoony guys, the Christian Cosses, dudes like that, okay. But Bryce Eldridge, what's the point? What is the point of not letting him see lefties? Then Wilmer Flores immediately, because this is what Wilmer Flores does. No disrespect to Wilmer Flores. He's been great for a lot of his time with the Giants, but everybody is talking trash about Wilmer Flores starting over Bryce Eldridge. Here goes a Wilmer Flores home run. Now, it would have been nice if he did that and the Giants won the game, but Wilmer Flores has a great game. So Bob Melvin, whoever writes the lineup, they look good. But I don't care about that. Right? This was a long shot going into this week to begin with. The Giants would have had to play perfect. They did the exact opposite. They have not won a game since people started paying attention to them. They haven't. They hit that, literally, they hit that walk-off. Patrick Bailey did. They were the talk of Major League Baseball. And they've done absolutely nothing ever since. So I don't really care that Wilmer Flores is going to show out a little bit to end the season. Let Bryce Eldridge see everything he can, because that's your plan going. Are you going to tell us that Bryce Eldridge is not going to see lefties in 2026? I don't think so. I do not think so. So what is the point? Throw him in the pool. See if he can swim, because I think he can. In AAA, he can. He's been raking lefties. So I don't understand that. I would make sure Bryce Eldridge gets every single at-bat possible. I would pull up Jesus Rodriguez. Those are the two moves I would for sure make. Bring up a couple pitchers as well. See if you can find something within someone. And I'm just keeping an eye on Blade Tidwell. I would be surprised if they move him this quickly. But if he's ready, he's ready. And you got 4 games against Dodgers. So you're just going to be chilling down there in LA. And you can kind of say, okay, we lost the first one. All right, let's bring some guys down. It's not as if it's a quick trip. Well, it's a quick trip to get down there, but you're down there for a while. So it's kind of a perfect situation to bring some guys into the fold. If, let's say, if the Giants lose today and the Mets win, all right, let's see who we can pull down. That would be the point in time where, because if you wait too long, what are you going to give them? A random 3 games against the Rockies? Okay, who cares about that, right? I guess you could give them the Cardinals and the Rockies series after you say, hey, we're going to respect the rivalry with the Dodgers and we're going to play our guys. Okay, but you had an opportunity in your backyard at Oracle Park and you got blown out twice after scratching away a victory off that walk-off grand slam. You completely, like a turtle, crawled back into your shell and did absolutely nothing. So you want to say, all right, no, we want to respect the Dodgers moving forward. It's too late for that. The Smurfs, they took care of business. So you lose today. I think it's a game-by-game basis. You lose today, and eventually it will get to, it doesn't matter if you win, because if the Mets win and you're not gaining games, what's the point? But you gain a game today, okay. Go into LA and try to do the unthinkable. You lose this game and the Mets win, I would say let's start to see who we're interested in seeing. Right. And I know we haven't talked about Marco Luciano. Marco Luciano is another guy essentially out of options. So they've basically told us what they think about Marco Luciano. That's where it's at. I know I didn't mean to end the show on a bad note, but that's just the reality of where the Giants are right now. It was a fun stretch, though. It was a fun couple weeks, though. And we'll see what they're able to do against the Diamondbacks and obviously against the Dodgers over the weekend and even before the weekend with that 4-game homestand. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. Be sure to follow me on social media at @Styles Files, Styles with an I. Also follow the Locked On Giants official account on X, on TikTok as well. And we really appreciate you liking, subscribing, downloading all the podcasts the way that you have been downloading the podcast. Again, thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB game night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB game night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, peace.